Good. So this evening session, we have the topic we have before us is typography. So anywhere we go to, if you are in the streets, at our place of work, in the school, all around, we have typography everywhere. And before we talk about typography, there's something we need to talk about too. We have text. So whenever we chat, we do some things with text, right? So, and that text is a code language. So whenever we have DOG, we know that that's dog, right? If you have MAN, we know that's the man, right? So that's a language. And we have different ways which we enjoy life. We enjoy life by listening. So we enjoy life by, sorry, somebody's on mute. Can we hold mute, please? All right, thank you. Yeah, so we have different ways of enjoying life. So we enjoy life by what we eat, what we listen to, and what we see. So, and in this part of this topic, um, is majorly on what we see. So we need to be very, very conscious of how we use our typography, because people will see whatever we do, and from there is either if it's something they will like, they will enjoy, and if it's not something they don't enjoy, then something is wrong. So that's why we need to really focus on this particular lesson. Is very, very important. So like I said, wherever we go to, in the school, at home, everywhere we have typography. So the next slide now. So we have different common types of fonts. So one of the types of fonts we have is serif fonts. So serif fonts is, you can easily identify serif fonts. So how do you identify serif font? It has a stroke at the end of the letters, the characters. So whenever you see a serif, any character with a stroke at the end, or probably around it, that is serif font. Very, very easy to identify. It's not difficult. And and it is commonly used on traditional projects. So whenever you see projects on 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, so it's usually you see serif fonts used in those projects. And you can see it magazines. You can see it in newspapers. So, and newspapers for a very long time is a traditional way of spreading news around, and it's still in existence up to now. So, if you check any newspaper at home, anywhere, just check the fonts they use. You notice that the characters they are serif fonts, and then it's usually eligible for people to read, so you can read it clearly when you have it printed, when you have your design printed. So it's better to have it in serif font. So we are moving to the next slide now. The next font is sans serif font. So the literal interpretation of sans serif font is without serif. So how do you identify sans serif font? It's very easy. So just remove the strokes from the serif font. So there you have sans serif font. So it means without the literal interpretation of sans serif font. So I believe we are all taking note of what I'm saying. So I want a response, please. Are we all following?
Yeah, I'm following. I'm following.
Yes, we are
Oh,
following.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh,
I'm
very
also
good.
here.
Okay, yeah, very good. So, and okay, so we can almost now. All right, thank you. So another thing before I move to the next slide. So at this part of the section, I want you to know that even if you are in advanced level, Okay, so it's a session of refreshments. Okay, so just to take you back to what you've learned before, and then maybe one or two things you can still pick from it. So, all right, so it's for everybody. So we are moving to the next slide now. So far we've talked about serif fonts and also sans serif font. That is the literal interpretation without serif. Yeah. And sans is a French word which means without. So the next slide we have this display font. So display font come in many different styles like script, black letter, all caps, and just plain fancy. So usually whenever you want to use this type of font, okay, it's better that you use it for headers. So you just have it as headers, then whatever characters you have next to it, it should be something entirely different to display font. So it's not something that you use all over your design. You see it, okay, at the very top, you see script, at the very bottom, you see black letter, the middle, you see all caps. No, it's going to make you're going to overwhelm your audience with. In fact, they are not going to like your design. They are not going to flow easily with whatever message you want to pass across. So, and on the right side, we have a very perfect example of how to use the font. So, on the first example we have there, so this is just the first one at the top, is just the different types of display fonts, which is script, black letter, and all caps, and is displayed the way this is a perfect example of the script font, then the black letter font, and the all caps font. So these are just example of many of hundreds and thousands of different of their kinds. So the next example we have here is the first design here. You can see something like yoga, right? Then the rest you have something entirely different. So this is just a perfect example of having the display font as the header. Then the rest you have either serif font or sans serif font. Okay, so the another example here is more like heavy graphics design. It's not really heavy. It looks heavy actually, heavy design, but you can see the display font on it stands out, very easy, simple, straight away, nice. You understand? Very very cool, calm, but yet heavy. You understand? So this is a perfect example of how you use this type of font. So next slide. So now the question is, how do we choose a font? Choosing a font. How do we choose a font? So in a way, fonts have their own language. They all have something to say beyond the words on the page. They can come across as usual or neutral, exotic or graphic. That's why it's important to think about your message, then choose a font that fits. So whenever you want to design, so you really need to understand the purpose and the audience. So you need to have a proper planning, proper plan, proper. You need to have the right mind towards whatever you want to put out. So now on the right side, we have different types of styles, okay, or fonts. Let me just say fonts. So this style, the first one is casual. Then we have neutral, we have exotic, we have graphic. Now, so the question is, how do we use this type of fonts? So for me, I'm going to break it down. Okay. So for me, so let me start from casual, then to graphic, exotic to neutral. So I'm going to take casual, then I'll ask you guys questions around graphic. What do you think about graphic? What kind of design do you think you can make out of graphic? Okay. All right. So I'll start with casual. So for me, this casual, looking at it, okay. So it's good if you want to do something like probably a wedding design, something like Shola Wed, Kafaya. Okay, so or something like if you want to do something like just have normal sans serif as the name, and this casual will be the words. You understand? Sunday West, which is casual, will be the word WEDS. Then the name of the person could now be you have it in sans serif font, right? So now, so I want to throw the graphic to everyone. So I want you to give me an example of the kind of design you think this graphic font fits. So please kindly unmute and tell me something if you have anything to say about this graphic.
So can I talk?
Okay, yeah, you can go ahead, please.
We can use graphic in maybe when we want to give. Let me just say, for example, if you want to pass an information and we need something very big, like
Yeah.
if you want to pass a very big information, like let me say attention, 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 before
Mm,
writing other words. So the graphics can be the attention, attention can be in that graphic font.
okay. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, so you can unmute now. So let me continue. Okay, so now that's a good one. But for me, so if I want to use this graphic, do you know what kind of design I'm going to do? Type of design is going to be rock music. You can see the feel of something energetic, right? I'm sure we all know rock music. That kind of music that's very rocky, something like that. So if you have this kind of graphic font on that kind of poster for probably rock music concert, it fits perfectly. Very, very cool. Just have it there. Something like John Thomas concert. Just this John Thomas the name, then this one, the concert will just be this font. You understand? Something like that. Then the neutral, okay, we could use the neutral for probably birthday design. So something like the neutral probably is going to be the name of the person behind, then the person will stand in front of the neutral font looking probably his name, something like that. Maybe Shola in and in front, very bold between E and U, or between U and T. In between, the person could stand bold, probably with his hand folded or pockets or something like that. You understand? So this neutral could work like that, and it is going to look more like modern style of design if you do that. Then the exotic fonts. So this one, like the name, so you could probably use it for jewelries, earring, poster. Okay. So then another way of choosing. So even if you want to do barrier design poster, so there are fonts that you can also use. You need to think about it. Like what kind of font can you use? People are money, but yet you still want them to feel um, consoled in your with your font usage. So you can probably use something like the exit, glorious exit. So the exit could be kind of script, something, not something so strong like that. So make it light, make it, there's a way to do that. So let's move on to the next slide. Yeah, so now we have different types of fonts to avoid, So like we have here now, the sample we have here now, I'm sure we can all see it. So we have Common Sans, we have to command, calls, voice script, blah, 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 yada yada yada. So among all these things, all these phones, it's not like they are they are bad phones or something is wrong with it or with them or something is not. But the reason why we need to avoid this type of phones is because they are heavily used. You see them everywhere, and the reason why you see them everywhere because whenever you buy a window installed system, okay, so these phones automatically comes with it. Okay, so if you buy any system today, so just open to Microsoft Word, Just check for the font to use, you see Common Sans there. Do check for Jokama, you see it there. Check for brush script, you see it there. You understand? So it's a font that is heavily used, and then as a professional, it's not encouraged for us to use it. It's not something that speak well. It doesn't speak volume of how good we are. So even if you are tempted, we can probably look for close related fonts around, yeah, among these fonts. So if probably Comic fonts, there are hundreds of related font of Comic Sans. Do you understand? So instead of using a particular one, just look for a close related looking font. Then we are all good. So we move to the next slide. Then now this is combining fonts. How do we combine fonts and then make our design look so nice and look so classic even without image? So we can still do something and it will be very, very cool, you know. Yeah, so that now, so how do we do that? So now the best answer I have for you is that less is more. Like, just make sure that you use as less as possible. Use some, don't use too many fonts. Just use maximum two in your design. So if you want to do probably social media posts, for example, so if you want to use fonts, probably the okay, so before I even talk about that, so we are still going there. So just make sure that it's two, okay? Don't use something like three, four, five. No, that's not good. I've been that before, so I've done that in the past some years ago. So and then we learn every time, we learn every day. So and then it's not something good. Okay, so avoid. Just try something if you are familiar with Canva and you've been doing some little design before, just try that this evening and then do a design and make it two different fonts. Okay, just try it. You see that your design will look more calm. It look the people, anyone that looks at it will not be stressed. Okay, so yeah, so that's how to use combine fonts. So another way of combining fonts, so we can also use complementary fonts. Okay, so we could use, for example, we could use serif and sans serif in our design. So like the first example we have here, we can see it, you can say old fashioned shortcake. Okay, so that one, the first font, that one is serif font. Then the one that next to it is sans serif font, though it is italic format and a little bit bolder. That has to do with ingredients. So the next one that follows that is Lato. So if you look at this closely, you see that it's just two fonts. The header, which is serif font, then the next to it is sans serif font, but one is bolder and the other and italic. Then the other one, the next one to it is still serif font, the same font, but this one is normal, regular size. Okay, so and then the down part. So we have another example here. So the one here, down part on the left side is you. Okay, so the font type is the serif, sans serif font, and you can see down below it is italic. Okay, and the last part of it is still sans serif. It's still sans serif font, but bold with different color and different background. Okay, so we can play around with the size, the format, and yes, it's still the same font. So and look at it, very simple and nice. Everybody will like it. Okay, then the next one to it, this one is more like complementary colors, and then not only one again, yeah, two. We have two different fonts in the second design in the middle. So woe is me, so which is this one is script, the woe is me is script. Then the one under it, the writer is Eric John Josh whatever, is a serif font. Okay, and look at this, very simple but nice. So that is what is less is more, less is cool. So let's try to limit font usage. So just maximum two. And the third one here is this one is all caps, and then you use lower caps too. So here comes the sun. This is all caps fonts, and the other one is just normal, which is sans serif font. Yeah. Okay, no, this is still no, this is not sans serif font. It's still under the family of display fonts. Yeah. So we move to the next slide. So other important terms. Okay, so this part as in beginners level. Okay, so it's not something that we need to really focus, put our attention into, but it's something that we still need to know, we still need to understand. So we don't just design on assumption. So even though we are not in advanced level of typography and the basic level of it, so even whenever we are designing, we know that okay, this is what we are doing. This is the reason, this is the purpose and all that. So we don't just design on assumption. So anybody that comes to us and asks question, why do you do this? We have something to tell them. So, and this is the reason why we need to learn these terms. So next slide. Yeah, so the first one is hierarchy. So before I move on, so we have them here: canning, leading, tracking, and hierarchy. So the first one is hierarchy. So we all know hierarchy, right? Okay, so we know the order of importance, right? So in a company, we have the manager, we have line manager, we have team leaders, we have workers, right? So it is with hierarchy. So all eyes is on the manager, and then the next person to the manager that talks to the manager is the line manager, then like that. So the same thing follows, works with design. So what you want people to see, it needs to be very bold, needs to be very strong. So for example now, this particular guy that sued Picnic and Gala, what's his name? Sabinos. There's this caption. What's his name? Can anyone remind me? What's even the? Can I remember? I can't remember that. It's
Something huge.
eh? Something
Something
huge. Yeah,
huge.
yeah, something huge. Thank you. Something huge. Something like that. So I designed something in my company. So in my company, I designed something like the sent content, something like that. Something huge is about to happen. So it was during that time that Sabino sued the company. So that particular caption was the headline was the header of the design. So the other things now comes with it. So it was when Sabino sued the company, so we had to retrieve it. We were very lucky. We had to retrieve it and change it to something and change it and put it to normal spelling, huge, normal huge spelling, not Sabino spelling. So probably the company will also be sued, but then we're able to retract it. So now this hierarchy, it has to be very strong, stand out. The caption needs to be stand out. Then the rest now comes, we now follow. We follow it. So like on the example we have here, we have the perfect example here, hierarchy. Then the definition, hierarchy. So our eyes just go straight to that hierarchy. Then what next to it is just used to guide the reader's eye to whatever is most important. So it's that's what is hierarchy. So then the next one we have is another example. So we have the name of this is a complimentary card. We have Kenya Reed. Then the job description of the person is web designer. Then we have the type, we have the contact. So if you look at it closely, you see the name of the person is very bold. Then the description is lighter and the font is smaller. Then the contact you see is is smaller. So that is example of perfect hierarchy. So next slide. So we have leading. So leading is space between lines of text. So this leading, we're probably familiar with it, but we don't just know that this is exactly what it means. Okay, so I'm sure we are familiar with Microsoft Word. So whenever we type, we have spaces in the lines, right? So this is called leading. So, and then there are times that you need to know how to give it space so that your audience can able to read whatever you are putting out. Okay, so they need to be able to read your whatever content you have on your creative, on your design. So, and if you are not strong enough on how to use it or don't really uh, know how to work around it to give it the right space, okay, so we have default settings. Just click on auto when you start using design software. So it's already there. Just put it auto or zero, so it automatically give you that space that everyone can easily read. Okay, so like the example we have here now, we have leading. So then if you look through, if you look at the G and the first letter of the next line, we have D, right? The T and the G. If you look through, if you look closely, the space between the two, and now look at the bracket of the next one, also that bracket of also. If you look at the space in between and the T, you see that it's the same, if not almost. If you look at it, you see that it's almost is if not the same, okay, it's almost like the same space, right? So this is a perfect one. So no, there's nobody you able to, you design this, you will design for and do something like you will not be able to read. So we don't want to boggle the mind of our audience and then stress them. Nobody have the time to just be paying attention to something. So if you have the space and um, you have is the content is not so much, okay, you can just make it something like this that we make your reader to able to see your content very well. So the second example we have here, you can just don't even looking at the spaces, okay, you see that is not, you can hardly read it, okay, so it's very very close. So the person could have probably made added more spaces, okay, so with that you can still be able to read it better instead of this. So but the first example I have, this one is very good, but this one still need improvement. So we are moving to the next slide. So that's for leading. So leading has to do with the space between lines. So the next one is tracking, okay? Tracking is the overall space between characters. So sometimes called character spacing. Most programs let you okay, so now so this particular tracking, okay, so when you begin to advance in your design experience or journey, so you begin to use the tracking style more. So what you do basically, is the space between the characters. So it's all about the space between the characters. So you can decide to expand the space for one reason or the other. So, and then you can decide to shrink it for one reason or the other. So when you're advancing, okay, so there will be need for you to be using this tracking style often. So when you design logo, when you design poster, birthday designs and stuff like that, so there will be need for you to be using the tracking. So what you basically do with it is whenever you want to balance something and it's not enough, you can easily do something tracking, like expand the spaces between your characters so that to balance it up and to give that kind of modern looking style. Okay, so then we have this another example here, 2016. So there is balancing in the spaces of 2016. So that's tracking. Even the annual report, there's a little of tracking in the annual report. It's not normal auto spacing. You understand? So then the cafe Citron too has some little of tracking in it. Okay, all right. So that's all about tracking. So we are moving next. We are moving to canning. So canning has to do with space between specific characters. So this particular style, okay, So this one still it actually looks close to tracking, but it's not tracking. So, but this one you have independent control over the space, the spaces in your characters. So it's not something that you could make it not even, you can make it even, right? So and at times you want to make a design that it's the space is more of geometrical, like the first space it will be smaller than the next space. That second space will be smaller than the third space. The third space is smaller than the fourth space. You understand? And you could make it, you have control over the spaces. So that's for can. And at times too, we have a situation whereby you have some certain fonts that they it comes with canning style. So those kind of fonts you avoid it. So the second example we have is a perfect example of canning fonts. Now, for example, now the B and the A, the space between the B and the A is different from the A and B and D. Then the K and I, the space and the E and the I and N is different, right? Then the N and G is different. So this type of font will give you headache. So what do you do if you have this type of font? Just stay away from it. And if you like the style so much that you really, really want to use it, what do you do? So just look for a close related font like this and probably delete this one out of your system. Okay? You don't have the time to be trying to close something and doing that. There's no time. You have a lot to do, a lot of things to think about, and wasting your time on a font. Okay, all right, on a bad font, not a font, a bad font. So we are moving to the next slide. Yeah. Now, with everything we have said so far, so putting it all together. Okay. Now, well-crafted text can mean the difference between something ordinary and something extraordinary, even if you are just getting started with design. All it takes is an interest in typography, and you start to notice more, see more, and be able to do more in your own work. Okay. So, yeah, with everything we have said so far, okay, so with time, more practice, and then if you go to, I'm sure some of us are already familiar with Pinterest, and then also place for designers, Behance. So you don't, you stay very close with those platforms. So there you get inspiration on how to use typography, how to use how to apply some certain style of fonts or something like that. So, and the sample we have here now. So now, sales reports. These are more of hierarchy, and then looking at this particular. Okay, so now I want every one of us to unmute. So let us talk. This I want to ask question. So after this one, then the floor is open for your own question to ask your own question. So please let us all on. All right. So my question is for this particular. So you can,
Excuse me, please.
do you know which
Hello, please. Not unmute our mics at the same time.
Okay, that's fine. All right, that's fine. Don't worry. You can please kindly mute. Don't worry. Please kindly mute. All right, thank you. All right, you can mute. Okay, don't worry. All right, thank you. So for this type of font is sans serif font. We could make our text in this box, in this space, make it smaller. So if you do that, it's going to make our design very nice. Okay, so the header is bold, then the down part is lighter. Okay, Then the next one, this type of font is all caps fonts. Okay, all caps font. Then we have sans serif font. This one is more like using two different fonts in your design. You can see how simple it looks and how nice it looks. It's simple, nice, and then yeah, very nice. Simple, nice, yeah, so and this one has to do with this one is script. You are invited. Look at how it looks. Very simple, just one. So it's not like this you are is one font and invited is another font. Everything is just one font. So simplicity is the key and the less is more. So I hope we all enjoyed learning the basics of typography. So for me, I've enjoyed myself, and then in the process, I've even learned some one or two things. So and I'm sure we've all learned, we've loved learned in the course of this class or training. Yeah. So this will be the end of today's training session. Thank you all. Thank you for joining. So I'm going to hand over to you again to the moderator to continue from here. So, okay, yeah. Okay, so now I want to ask, okay, so I want to ask, I think I should leave you for the moderator, so we'll be the one to take the question and answer session. So the moderator, please kindly take over. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I thought thank you for the presentation. You can stop sharing. Okay, thank you. So, guys, it's now the question and answer period. I drop on the chat that if you have a question, you should put it on the chat. And if you want to ask it in person, you can do that now. So, but before that time, there's a question on the chat box which I will just read out. It said, "Are there apps to download to put this thing into practice?" I thought ready score and good. That's the question. Any of you can answer it.
All right. Okay. So I'd like to provide an answer to the question. So the question says, are there apps to download to put this into practice? So yes, there are many apps that you can use to practice. There are free apps, there are paid apps. And just as the tutor was talking about you making use of Canva, so I believe every one of us have access to Canva. So it's a free, and though it adds a version that is paid, it has a version that is free. So we can actually play around with Canva. Yeah, and also I believe most of the questions that we might actually have as regards to typography and the entire part that was covered in this session, Canva, I believe that we'll deal with Canva on its own when we reach the practical aspect. But for this case of this question, so you can just look into Canva. Canva is a good place for you to, you can use your mobile, you can download the app, you can as well use, online, your web browser to access Canva. So it's canva.com. So you can use Canva to practice out the fonts and using the fonts, and also playing around the font sizes, the weights, the kerning, the leading, and the other aspect that was covered in this class. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. The same questionnaire is still asking another question. He said, "Is this still about graphic design? Because Canva is majorly for graphic design." Sorry, I asked too much. Anyhow, you can ask. So it's a good question. He said, "Is it still about graphic design?" No, and because he's saying Canva is majorly for graphic designs.
All right.
So
So the question is kind of, what should I say? Maybe the person that is asking the question is, because the class is about design. So it's about
design.
graphic design. So now saying the Canva is all about design, and is it still about design? So that's the part I don't understand. But this course is about design. So, and Canva is a platform where you can be able to make design from. Just as we have Photoshop, we have Illustrator, we have CorelDRAW, and other apps. We have Pixel Lab that is for phone. So we have different platforms and different softwares which you can use to make design from. So this course is about graphic design for now. So, and the platform that was mentioned, Canva, is a design platform, just as you have softwares as well. Hope this answered the question. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. So, the room is open. The floor is open for those that will want to ask question. You can just unmute and ask a question.
All right. Good evening. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Okay. My name is Michael. I want to ask a question. I'm with a pamphlet here, and it's quite big. It carries Redeem logos for one of their programs, and I joined it a little bit late. So from hierarchy, they have a very big heading. Then there's another one. They wrote possibility on it. You can imagine on a page. They wrote possibility. Then they wrote assembly, possibility assembly. But there is different fonts, which the possibility is bigger, which I consider that to be the hierarchy. Then the second one is let's say that the font they use there is about 22. Then for the possibility they use 22. For assembly they use something like 18 under it. So you have possibility assembly, and
Okay.
they have about different fonts. Then the one they use to write password under the logo, it has about, let's say they use a font of maybe 10, size 10. You understand? On the same
Yes.
design. So for the date, they have another font. Maybe they use size 12 for that. So everything carrying different fonts just on maybe uh, one fourth of the page. Just that little space. And would you consider that, if by imagination, would you consider that a very good design? Because if you look at it, it passes the information. At least you can see it visibly. But if you look at the context of what you've just thought now, is it reasonable for a designer to do that?
Okay. Okay, that's a good question. I thought will you?
Okay, all right. Okay, so I can't see the design. So, but based on what you described about the design, so there are different ways of designing. So, and then we have beginners level, we have intermediate, we have advanced, and
Okay.
on the hierarchy. Okay, so there are times that you want to make a caption could carry more than 3 words, okay, like you just said. So everything together could be combined together, and that will form hierarchy, will form the first one. Do you understand?
Okay.
So with
Yeah, I
different, so
do.
there are cases whereby you make the possibilities in different fonts. Then something maybe off could be another font, maybe stylish, and another one. So a very experienced designer know how to play around the fonts like that. So everything combined together so could form a single hierarchy. So once you look at it, you see that alone together like that. You understand?
Yes.
You see it together. Then the
Yes.
next
Yes.
part of
Yes.
it carry lesser with probably the date, probably the address, probably the name or something like that. You understand?
Mm.
So I can't, like I said, I can't see the design, so I may not be
No,
able
you're on
to.
point. You're on point.
Okay, all right, thank you.
No problem, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Are you satisfied?
I'm very satisfied, sir.
Thank you. Allow other people to ask their question then. Okay, marvelous. Do you want to ask a question? Okay, it seems we don't have any question now here. Then that brings us to the end of the class. If there's no any other question, let me check the chat box if there's question there. Okay, I can see one. He said, please, should we still be expecting the slide for yesterday and today's class. Oh, okay. Let me give you the answer. Don't let me bother the other people.